Hello and welcome to a new episode of the CTO Show with Mehmet. My name is Mehmet, and as you know, in each episode, I cover different topics from digital transformation, cybersecurity, AI, no code, and so on. And sometimes also I have with me guests, but today's guest is a special guest because we were colleagues in the 100 days of no code together. And I'm doing this series where I will be interviewing a couple of other colleagues as well. And we will talk a little bit about the experience, about the motive. So Jackie, thank you very much for being with me today. If you can just give a quick introduction and then we'll take it forward from there.
Sure. My name is Jackie Kerzner. I have a background in organizational performance and strategy, and my specialty is in solving weird, complex problems for organizations and people and leveraging opportunities. And that is a really nice appetizer for falling in love with no code. I think the two things really go together well.
Yeah, that's good. Actually, this will bring to me the first question. I know that it was your third time, right? In the
Yes.
so what was the first time? What inspired you to join this course? Like what were are the goals? I mean, you were trying to achieve.
So the first time I joined was really almost by accident. So I was in a fellowship through a company called On Deck. They are an ecosystem unto themselves in the startup world. And On Deck had one of their fellowships that specialized in no code. And I attended a session with the lead of that program who was talking about all the cool things you can do with no code. And my brain just kind of exploded. And from the first 5 minutes of that session to the end of the hour, I just felt like I felt lit up. I felt electrified. And I ended the session and I very excitedly sent a message to the person who hosted. I said, what do I need to do to get started with no code? I really need I need something structured. I know myself well. I can't just do this on my own. And she said, you need to get in touch with the 100 days of no code team and see if you can sign up for their stuff. And right away I messaged Max and it changed my life. It's been a whirlwind of a journey. So
Yeah, that's cool. And, this is the same feedback I hear from anyone that see the no code for the first time. Even myself, I have a little bit background. I'm not a coder, but the moment I started to see what you can do, really, as you said, it's mind blowing. So let's talk about the last one, because I know like you had like two experiences, but I want to focus on the last cohort that we had. So how did you approach designing and building, your MVP during the program? Like what tools and platform did you use?
so I think my response to that really has to take me back to the boot camp
Fine.
prior to that,
Yeah, sure.
because the MVP that I built during boot camp 2, had a stack that used Airtable and Softer, but I did not realize that my project really involved a lot of research. And so what happened was I ended up doing a research project instead of building a project, if that makes sense. I kind of
Yeah.
got stuck in having to do all the legwork to create my data to get it into Airtable. And so just based on the timeline of the boot camp, I sort of ran out of time. I felt like I was trapped in Airtable. And so I sort of had to finagle my MVP to create a front end in Softer without actually connecting my data to Softer. So when I came back to the next boot camp, I had a very clear strategy about what I needed to do differently. I didn't want to make the same mistakes I made in camp 2. So I wanted the same stack because I'm obsessed with Airtable and Softer. There's so much you can do with those tools, and I'm really, even though I've been in the no code space for 8 months, I still see myself very much as a beginner. And so I really wanted to just focus on those two tools, and really just hone in and ignore everything else. And so that was what I decided I was going to commit to when I came back to the third boot camp. So I did exactly that. I ignored some of the tools other people were working on, like Adalo, which is great, but it wasn't the right fit for me. And I focused on getting myself further and faster into Softer than I had done in the second boot camp. And it paid off. And it allowed me to add in another tool that I really wanted, which was a scraper.
Yeah, exactly. Like this is one of the things, and this I'm saying to the audience. One of the benefits you joining, such courses is you get guidance. Like it's not the traditional way someone open PowerPoint slides and you get bored and you don't know what to do next. So it's they will guide you about the tool and they will tell you which tool will fit your idea. So this is what happened to me also as well, and this is what happened to you, Jackie. Now you mentioned some challenges, like during the last one. What was I remember? I wanted to tell it to the audience. You faced some challenges during building the MVP, but you overcame them. So what can you talk about that? The part where you were trying to find some data.
Yes. So the MVP that I built in the third boot camp, which is still the MVP that I'm working on, and it's what I want to turn into a business. It involves me having data that I don't have access to, right? So I had to have a way to get the data. So I knew that as somebody who's building a business directory, which is basically like Yelp, but for a very niche market, it's for vegan donut shops. I knew that I needed to have a list all over the world of donut shops. And I don't have a way to get that unless I'm going to spend a lot of time on the internet manually searching for things. So first thing I knew was that I would have to learn a scraping tool that would allow me to scrape Google Maps so that I could get names of prospects that I could potentially add to my directory. So that was a hurdle for me, figuring out which scraping tool that I needed. And I had actually done that work prior to the boot camp. So that was a proactive choice I made as a result of learning lessons I had learned in the second boot camp. So I already knew which scraping tool I was going to use, but that had taken a few months prior to the boot camp for me to decide. So creating the time to learn that tool on top of learning how to get far enough in software prior to that was a challenge for me. My big challenge in the boot camp was I didn't feel proficient enough with software even though it's an easier no code tool than some of the
Yeah.
others to learn, you still have to learn the tool, right? You have to learn how to use the tool. You have to learn, it's like learning to play a musical instrument. Most people don't just sit down and start playing, a concerto. You have to learn where the keys are. You have to learn the names of the keys. You have to learn parts of a song. So it's like that with learning no code software too. So I wanted to speed up my time with learning the software. I wanted to speed up how quickly I could go from 0 to 1, which is not a skill set that I really have in my day-to-day job. So that was a challenge. Also, I think a challenge I had that a lot of people have in the boot camp is just real life gets in the way of the intensity of the boot camp. Like work is time consuming, real life is time consuming, kids, family, whatever you have going on. And that can really throw people off, I think, in the boot camp. There are people who give up. And so that wasn't something I was going to allow to happen. So I would say that was a hurdle that I learned the third time because I had struggled with that in some of the other boot camps.
Yeah, that's very, I would say, informative. And just I want to add something for people who are listening or will be watching this. Um, you might hear that, yeah, no code is nice, cool, but you cannot do anything with it. Um, of course, it's not a full-fledged coding thing, right? But as you have heard, like when you have a challenge, there are a lot of tools nowadays that can allow you, to integrate with APIs that allow you to go find information. And I think, Jackie, she used it because she showed us the MVP, the way she scraped the data. So, she used a tool, and at the end of the day, where she were able to integrate that with the software and Airtable part. So what I want to tell everyone, don't prejudge no code. Of course, it's not like a full-fledged programming thing, but really you can build a very solid MVP. And this is, my second or the next question to you is like the idea, right? So how did you come up with the idea? How did you validate it? And how you are, saying, yeah, this might be something that can go big or can be a real business.
Well, I already knew prior to the boot camp that I wanted to have a real business that I would build over time. I knew this was a long game. This was not just a fun project to throw into the boot camp. And there's nothing wrong with doing that
No.
because people do it all the time, right? It's fun to learn how to build things. But I knew that this was something that had legs. I knew that this is a market that has a need that hasn't been met before, and I'm part of that community, and I have been my whole life. So I know this market very well. And I'm also a customer in this market. So I didn't have to do a whole lot of validation because I've known for 30 years that there was a need for this, right? Um, I think that part of building something like a business directory, which is what I'm building, it's a very stable concept, right? I mean, that's what Yelp is built on. There are all kinds of that's what Angie's List is built on, right? It's very common to have businesses need to have people pipelined into their doors so that they can sell to them. So you really have a two-sided marketplace. So that doesn't need a whole lot of validation in and of itself because that's always going to be a need. Businesses need customers, customers need businesses. But figuring out how to create an MVP that would work for this kind of market was part of, the work of figuring out how to do the project. And I think the other thing that sort of speaks to what you said a minute ago is that I already know that this MVP has a limitation because I need real features that I can't build on my own, right? I need software engineers who know how to build things like I can't invent a QR code by myself, right? So I know that my MVP is only going to exist as an MVP before I switch to some other software that is not no code software, but I already had that as a plan, right? So I already know I have to optimize the MVP for early buy-in, for early adopters to help get some early revenue. And then eventually I'll let go of the MVP and I'll switch to something else. So going back to what you said a minute ago, for people who say no code can't do everything, that's true. It can't do everything. But if you know when to optimize no code and when to transition it into something else, it gives you a lot of time to figure out how to do that wisely, I think is one of the benefits. I don't even know
Yeah.
if that answered the question, but
No, you did well. Two things which I wanted to hear from you, and actually you said them. So first, regarding the idea. Of course, myself, I did two things, two MVPs. One, it was like fun, right? And one just because I want to see how I can let ChatGPT be integrated in any app. And the second one was kind of a real problem for me. And this is where I wanted to highlight that coming up with the idea, you just start to ask yourself, and this is where also the course does fantastic job in getting all resources for you to see how others came up with their ideas, and they give you a framework how to generate ideas. Now, the other thing that I want to add also as well regarding the MVP, and because you said something exactly to the point I wanted to hear, like maybe yeah, at some stage we would need some software engineers to build that, but guess what, because I have an experience before where I had an idea. This was like 10 years back, maybe. And, at that time, there was nothing like no code today, right? So there was some few tools, but nothing similar to what we have today. So what we need to do is we need to sketch on paper and then just to try to explain to someone how this should work. And it was very tough. Now with no code tool, actually you have an MVP which works. It's not something which is just a fake, sequence of buttons, and it's something working, but yeah, it needs some feature to be added on. And this, I believe, makes also the developer job much easier because when he or she will see something working in front of them, oh, I get what you're saying. Okay, now I understand the logic. And then all what they have to do maybe to optimize the UI, they need to optimize the UX, user experience, and maybe they need to optimize the back end as well. So this is completely fine, guys. Don't be scared. Don't think from day one, okay, how I would, you know, I think I would need 10,000 users that they will come to the database. Don't think about that now. This will come later on. You can optimize things once you have a working MVP, and you will be shocked if you follow the space. You will see people actually who have built fully on no code tools, SaaS applications, and they are doing, I don't know, I've seen myself 100K per month MRR, month recurring revenue. So back to our discussion, Jackie. Just I have two questions for you. So, how do you think, I mean, for yourself and for everyone in general, how do you think such courses as like the 100 Days of No Code can impact careers, professional lives? And, what do you think the experience that everyone can get from these courses is?
I think it really depends on which experience you participate in, and that's part of why I came back to this 3 times. I mean, that and I've joked about that, but that's a metric, right? It's not typical for somebody to return twice or 3 times to an experience because they just keep getting value out of it, and I think that speaks to the design of the boot camp. Um, I think that people need to know themselves enough and know their learning, where they're at on their learning journey to know which kind of experience they need. The boot camp is really a boot camp. And I think that's something that people need to understand in advance. I think it is dangerous for people to come into this thinking it's a course because it's not. And as somebody who's got a very long background in learning and development, I already knew what a boot camp was because I've designed them before. So people need to recognize that this is a very intense experience. You jump in right away and you start building. This is not the introduction to no code, spend a month on that, right? This isn't about baby steps. This is about jump in, learn how to build. We'll teach you what you need, and then you go. Because at the end of the day, they want to transform your ability to build something, right? It's about walking out having built something that actually works. So I think if people are at a point where they feel like they really want to be building and not just learning concepts, that the boot camp would be great for them. If they're somebody who wants to do a deep dive into a specific project idea that they have, the boot camp is great for them. If there's somebody who has no background at all in no code, you can still come to the boot camp. I had no background at all in no code. And it's just such a motivating, exciting thing to participate in. It's very rewarding as soon as you get into it, right? It might be frustrating to be learning because you're new at it, but as soon as you build something, you realize, oh my gosh, I built something. Now I want to build something else. It just keeps begetting a desire to keep going. And I think for people who come to the boot camp worried that they're not going to be able to build because they're new to this, I would tell them not to have that fear. I think you just have to be willing to feel uncomfortable or feel a little stressed out and just go with it. It's so worth joining. I can't speak highly enough about this. There are other experiences that are more like just a course, right? Where it's just self-paced and you watch some videos and you learn software, and that has merit too. That was how I learned Airtable. But I think if you're somebody who really wants to walk away having built something from scratch that you created, the boot camp is the way to go.
Yeah, I agree with you. And for someone like me who who doesn't like to watch videos and even attend classical courses, this is a perfect one because I'm it's my opinion. I believe like you can learn by doing. And then once you start to face the problems, you can solve them out one by one. So to what Jackie said is the we're calling it course, but it's a boot camp actually. And the reason, because I asked Max and Harold about the way they designed this, so they want you to be under, I would not call it pressure, but like a real life scenario where, hey, someone came to you, you have 28 days, 4 weeks to come up with a running MVP. It's the best way that can push you actually to build something. Now, it might not be the best thing. For example, mine, I can tell you, I did zero UI, no design. It was just the functionality. So I can show people that there's something working, which is fine because now I have the time to do this, right? And the second thing, because you said it's not for everyone. Yes, it's not for everyone. Not because it's heavy work, but if you are not kind of ready to take the challenge, and you just want something easy that someone does the job for you and just you complete task.
Right.
It's not like a course and homework and assignment. It's not this. It's real work. It's all about you. You take the project home if you want to think like college, and you have to do the project and bring back and show it to your teacher or your whatever and colleagues. So this is the one. Now, final question for you, Jackie. I mean, um, maybe you answered this, but again, I want to hear from you again. Um, what is next for you with this MVP? Like, where do you think it can reach?
I want it to reach the world. I mean, my goal is to have a global directory. What's next for me is scrape a couple more states. So I scraped a state here in the US. I want to have two more states in there so that I have more data because this is such a niche directory that there's not a lot of data already, right? It's a very unique market. And then I want to start talking to potential customers and getting some early beta testers who are willing to stay on board with me for the long haul and always give me feedback, and then I can worry about finding customers for revenue. So
Did you
this is
start?
the
Did you start to share it with someone to have a look on what you've built or not yet?
I have shared it with people who will be end users, so people who will want to use the directory to find businesses, but I have not shared it yet with businesses who would be paying subscribers yet because I'm not
How
ready.
was their feedback? I'm just wondering.
Oh, people are excited.
Okay,
People are
that's it.
excited.
That's it,
Yeah.
guys. Like you can see, the reason I asked this question in this sequence, because I want you to see that first, Jackie found a problem that she herself she have it first. Second, she knows that she can solve it with MVP. Of course, there are challenges down the road. So I'm just showing you the sequence that will happen. Maybe you will feel, oh, I will give up, but don't. Okay, you go rest. This is what I did, by the way, also as well in one of the MVPs. One day I get stuck. I thought that this is not possible. And then I rested for a couple of hours and then I came back and then I found the solution. So this is one of the things you can be trained for it in your mind that yes, it can be done. And then at the end, you can see all of us, majority of us, we shared the ideas with other people. I shared it on Twitter and shared it with a couple of other people. And actually, what happened, people, yeah, we need this. Yes. So you can validate. And it's a best place if you dream to become an entrepreneur, if you dream to become a solopreneur, now they call them. Uh, so this is the first step because you need to start building. And it's a really highly recommended kind of course. And with this, we'll come to end. Anything you want to say, Jackie, before we close?
Yeah, I will say for people who I mean, it speaks to what you just said a minute ago. For people who think I don't have an idea, I don't know what I would build. If you focus on problems you have had, that you have experienced, problems that you know well, I think people would be shocked by how powerful a solution they can create. And that's one of the most exciting things about the boot camp is that when you're on demo day and you see all of the things that everybody else has built, it's like that person was born to solve that problem. They like nobody can create the thing that they created and they were what they made is a perfect solution for the problem. It shows you that everybody's an expert in some sort of problem. So if people think that they don't have a problem to solve or they don't know what to build, think about your life. Think about what you have faced, challenges in your workplace, in your personal life. You can build something that can solve problems for people, and hopefully that could be monetized.
Yeah, 100% agree. Well, thank you, Jackie, so much for joining me. I know it's a little bit for you now. As usual, if you have any feedback, if you have any questions about this episode or about the show in general, please don't hesitate to reach out to me either by email. You can find me on LinkedIn and Twitter. I would be more than happy to discuss. If you want to even come be a guest with me, more than welcome. I will be willing to have you on the show. And as usual, don't forget to subscribe to our channels, whether the YouTube channel, whether if you are listening to from your favorite podcasting platform, also don't forget to subscribe. Thank you very much. And until we meet next time.